Hi everyone and welcome along to the March pot kit tutorial. Thank you so much for buying the kits, or welcome along if you're just here to see what we do, to see how we pot up our kits, and just for a bit of planting and potting relaxation. We have, I think, 6 kits for the collection this month, bringing in some new Bergs Potter terracotta pots as well, which I'll talk you through in a moment. And yeah, really focusing on spring, of course, because it's March. And yes, I apologise in advance. I have woken up with an awful cold, so I may lose my voice. I may need to cough and splutter, so I apologise. I've got a cup of tea on the go, so hopefully you can join me with a cup of tea, or if it's a bit later on, maybe a glass of wine, and let's get started. So the first of our March pot kits is the scalloped planter, which has these beautiful narcissi bulbs in. It's a new addition to our collection. It has the beautiful sort of scalloped edge, a little bit more detailed than our previous planter that we had last month, but equally beautiful. It's a real favourite. I'm so chuffed with it, so I hope you'll really like it. And in this kit there will be 3 pots of bridal crown narcissi, which smell so beautiful. They have these gorgeous sort of ruffled petals in this lovely sort of ivory creamy colour, and yeah, they just look so beautiful for spring. Something a little bit different to the sort of normal kind of common yellow daffodil, and hopefully something that will really work in your interiors. It's a nice neutral palette. It's not going to clash, so yeah, I really hope you'll love this kit. So let's start up potting. So you have your planter. I'm just going to move my tea. You have your planter, and the first thing you need to do is pop the pot on the saucer, and then start with your gravel. So in your kits you will have your gravel, your compost, your 3 different types of moss, your twigs, which this month we've included dried oregano rather than your usual dried thyme that we use. So you'll have your little bundle of twigs in your kit, and yes, so this month we have some lovely dried oregano that also really smells gorgeous, so I hope you like that. So we start off with the gravel. So just include all of the gravel that's in your kit. With these bulbs, you don't need loads of gravel. It's just to add a little bit of drainage at the bottom, just so that the bulbs aren't sort of sat in lots of water and they don't become waterlogged. So after you've gone in with your gravel, you can then start adding your compost. Now obviously with your bulb pots, you will have the compost that they come in. There will still be some nutritional value in there, so you can add that to your kit, to your pot, but we'll see how we go and see how you get on. You might like to have your bulbs sort of slightly lower down in your pot, in which case you might need as much of that compost, or you might like to have them sort of sitting just above the rim so that you can see the sort of lovely little kind of papery bulbs above. So whatever you prefer. So let's pop in the compost. Now I have a trowel this week. It's taken me months, and yet I'm still using my hands, so I'm going to try not to use my hands and just use the tool you're supposed to use. Okay, so that's the compost in. I might add some more, I might take it away. I'm going to see how I get on. So with planting up your planter, it's going to be slightly different to your trio, this narcissi trio, which I will show you in a minute. So you take your bulbs out of their pot, just gently sort of squeeze the bottom of the pot near the roots, and they should come away reasonably easily. And then you'll see that beautiful root structure. Now, I would then plant it straight in, like so. For this planter, I'm not splitting the bulbs up. I don't think there's any need. I think that the 3 bulb pots work beautifully. Work beautifully. We don't need to split the bulbs up. I think it works better like this. So going in with the second one, So you're sort of just popping them in a triangle. And then the last one. Ooh. Okay. So that's the bulbs, beautifully potted up, so simple and easy. And then all you need to do now is fill in the gaps, the sort of 3 main sort of triangle shaped gaps, I guess, with your compost. And then adding the compost into the middle as well. And even with a cold, I can still smell these, and they just smell like spring. They are beautiful. Okay, so just filling in the gaps. There we go. Okay, so as you can see, we have the compost in the gaps, but then you can still see the bulb structure above the compost. So now we can go in with our moss. Now in your kits, you have 3 different types of moss. You have your bun moss, which is the sort of chunkier green not carpet moss, it's called bun moss, but yeah, just a really lovely kind of chunky texture. You then have your sphagnum moss, which is the sort of 2-tone, looser kind of structured moss, and then the flat moss, which is more, it reminds me of sort of like a woodland floor. You'll get sort of twigs in there, dried leaves. It's just a really gorgeous textured moss. So the 3 of them work beautifully together. So you take your moss, I'm going to start with the bun moss, and you simply pop it in the gaps. Now I would suggest with your bun moss to add a section of it into each of the sort of the 3 gaps that you've just filled with compost. So they're almost kind of the sort of triangles that are in between the potted bulbs. Okay, so that's your bun moss. And then you can start adding in your flat moss. And it can start to sort of creep up the bulb. So it almost looks like the bulbs are sort of blooming from that moss. One last section of the flat moss, and then in the areas where there's still compost, that's when I would then go in with my sphagnum moss, and that again adds another kind of dimension, another texture. Simply just place it around the bulbs. And then we can start adding the twigs. So that's the moss complete. It just finishes off the potting beautifully. So as I said, this month you have your dried oregano, which is a new addition to the collection this month. And then you have your dried birch twigs, which you always get in the kits. And again, we did it for last month as well. This month we have the cherry blossom twigs as well. They provide that lovely texture of sort of the green sort of buds against the brown stem. So I love these. They're a really good addition to our kits this month again. Okay, so I'm going to start with the birch. Now with the twigs, they're not really there for structure. So for last month with the muscari, of which we have bought blue muscari out this month, and then the resin white muscari this month is back. They were in there more for the structure to keep those muscari up because they are really delicate. But this time with the Narcissi, they don't need the sort of structure, the structural element of the twigs. It's purely there really just to create that beautiful texture for aesthetics. So adding in a few bits of birch. Now in your kit you will receive quite a generous sort of bundle of twigs, you know, sort of that kind of size. You don't have to use it all if you don't want to. It depends how much twig you want in your kit. Okay, and then I'm going to go in with some cherry blossom twigs. So you can cut these down. You'll have a mixture of different sized twigs. You can cut them down and split them up, or you can leave them tall. It's completely up to you. Now with cherry blossom, with this cherry blossom, if you bought it as one of the foliage boxes that we do, and you trimmed the bottom of them and cut them down with secateurs, pop them in water, the chances are they will flower. Sorry, they will flower. It's not guaranteed, so on the website I just say that it's just, you know, a closed cherry blossom, but you know, most of the time you will get a flower from there. In this situation, because you're not sort of placing them in lots of water, it's just in the sort of the damp soil, it's unlikely that you'll get a flower, but you never know, you might do. Okay. And now I'm going to add in the dried oregano. So this adds sort of a different colour and tone to the kit. It's more of a kind of greeny grey colour. So you can just break this down. You don't need to use secateurs if you don't want to. Just into little pieces. Sort of that kind of sort of size. And it's just to add something around the base of your kit. It does smell really lovely, this oregano. It doesn't smell like oregano, it's more of a kind of floral scent to it. Okay, so talking about how to look after your Narcissi planter, and it is the same with the trio that I'm going to plant up in a second. It's important to keep the bulbs damp, not waterlogged. So I would say you need to be watering them sort of every 2 days or so. Don't sort of, you know, overflow them with water, but just keep them nice and damp, and keep them on a windowsill or on an island, or, you know, on a bookshelf or an alcove, and they'll do beautifully. They will grow slightly, although I don't think you'll get a lot more height than what I've got here. When you receive the bulbs, they will be smaller and sort of younger, and then they will grow as time goes on. I would keep them away from fresh fruit, ideally, and especially if you're keeping them in the kitchen. Be careful not to spray them when you're sort of cleaning up. Try not to kind of get any, you know, kitchen spray on them, because that will go into their compost and root structure and potentially kill them. Last thing to note is that you can, when they finish flowering, cut them down and then add them into the garden, into the soil, and then hopefully, chances are, you will get some bridal crown Narcissi in the garden next year. Okay, so I'm just going to move this to the side. So that is our scalloped Narcissi planter kit. So I'll put that one there. And then we're going to go on to our trio. Now, these are a new addition this month as well. We've never had these pots before. They're a new sort of size for us. So they're a 10 centimetre scalloped pot. Just a very delicate scallop, but they are adorable. They're so cute. They're so versatile. This is my second plant in them now. I tested them out last month, and yeah, they're just gorgeous. They fit anywhere. You can keep them together, spread them out amongst around your house. I've also used them as a birthday tablescape, so that went really well. So just sort of dotted along the table. Yeah, they're just a really beautiful addition to our collection. So I hope you love these ones. Now, much the same as in the planter kit, you're going to start with your gravel. There's the tools. And again, you don't need a lot. Just split out your bag of gravel that you'll get in your kit. And then you can pop in your compost. Now again, see how you go with your compost. You might want to take some out, just depending. So see how you go. So I'm going to split some compost between the 3 pots. Okay, so this is a different technique to the planter. With the planter, we just took them out of their plant pot and popped them straight into the compost. With this one, this kit, I wanted it to be a little bit more sort of delicate, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So just a bit less about, you know, lots of flower, just more about sort of a subtle styling element that you can put on your tablescape or on your kitchen windowsill. So we're going to use 1 bulb per pot. It's also sort of quite a nice, inexpensive, I guess, way of styling your home, because we're not using lots of plants, we're just using 1. Therefore, it's not as an expensive kit, and hopefully, you know, I thought it would be like a really lovely gift as well for people. You know, if you were sending something for a special occasion, you know, it would work really well. Okay, so you're going to now take your bulbs apart. Now the root structure is pretty sturdy, but they do eventually, I'm not drinking that tea now, come apart. Please excuse the drilling next door. You can hear that. Okay. Now don't worry about the roots breaking. That's absolutely fine. They will carry on growing. They'll be fine. Okay, so you will end up with 3 little bulbs of Narcissi. Okay, so you pop your compost in your pot. So if I were to place it like that, actually it's fine, it works fine. It's sort of sitting just above the rim, and then we can go in with the moss and it will be lovely. What I would say though, and now you don't have to do this, but it might help. If you put your bulb in the palm of your hand and you twist, you then find that the roots sort of become a little bit neater, a little bit easier, I think, to plant up. You then go straight into the pot, and then the roots are sort of tucked under like a little nest under your bulb. Okay, let's do that with the other 3. Okay, so once the bulbs are in, and you'll find that they are a little bit sort of wobbly, but the moss will sort of anchor them in quite nicely. I'll then put a little bit more compost in. You don't need a lot, it's purely so that the roots are covered as best we can cover them, so that they will then get that nutrient from that soil. Ooh. Okay. So now we can start adding in the moss to our trio. Okay, so I'm going to start with the bun moss and break it down into small little bits because you don't have lots and lots of space for moss in this kit, which is again another reason why I decided not to use sort of a whole pot of bulbs in each pot, because it then does give you space for your other lovely elements that go into the kit. Okay, I'm going to pop some sphagnum in there as well. And then just a tiny bit of the flat moss. Now, I love it when it trails over the sides, so don't worry about it being all neat. It's meant to look, you know, rustic and sort of messy but beautiful, so don't worry if anything goes over the sides. Okay, so that's the bun moss. I'll put some in this one as well. And then a bit of flat moss. And some sphagnum moss as well. Okay, how are they looking? Okay, so now to finish off, we'll add some of the twigs. Okay. So let's start with the birch. And again, because these kits are so delicate and so sort of little, you don't need lots. So hopefully, if you have any left over, you can use them for something else in your home, so another plant or something. But you know, add in as much or as little as you want to. I'm just going for sort of 3 little twigs of birch in each of them. And again, it's not for structure, so you can make them as high or as low as you want them to be. Okay, and now I will pop in the cherry blossom. Again, I probably will only put, I don't know, let's see, maybe 3 in each of these again. I love how the sort of green buds sort of match and tie in with the stem of the narcissi. Use this little one here. Okay, and the last one. Okay, so now we can add in the dried oregano. Again, you can add them as long or as short as you want. Probably just going to put 3 little bits in each one. When these bloom, the smell of the oregano mixed with the smell of the narcissite is just going to be insane. Okay, last one. And then just going back to care, just to repeat, excuse me, just to repeat what I said for the planter. You're sort of looking at watering every sort of 2 days or so, and just keep an eye on the compost. Keep them away from fresh fruit, because if the fresh fruit emits a kind of sort of a gas that isn't good for fresh flowers and plants that you have in your house. And yeah, keep them relatively cool, not near sort of direct heat sources. Don't stick them atop a radiator, for example. And yeah, just keep them nice and watered, and yeah, hopefully you will enjoy these 2 kits. So this is the Narcissi Trio kit and the Narcissi Scalloped Planter kit. So our next 2 kits are the Saxifraga kits. So we actually did these last year and you loved them. They sold out really quickly, so we've brought them back this year. They are a gorgeous sort of white, delicate plant. They are an alpine, and ordinarily you would have them in the garden. You can keep them indoors. There's just a few little tips that I will share with you in a bit about how to care for them and how to get the most of them as a sort of house plant, as you will. So we've got 2 Saxifraga kits. We have this large planter, which is such a great size. It's a really, really sizable planter, 25 centimeters across, and it has this gorgeous sort of scalloped edging to it. It's just, yeah, a new addition to our collection. I'm so pleased with it. It will weather beautifully. I've not actually planted anything in it yet. It only arrived a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, as you sort of plant, it weathers and becomes even more rustic. So yeah, I really hope you'll love this new kit. And then the other Saxifraga kit we're doing is the Parisian Saxifraga kit, which comes in this beautiful sort of textured pot and matching saucer. And it's just, yeah, one of my favorites. We use this quite a lot in our kits. So this is a 14 centimeter. So again, a really lovely, sizable kit. Okay, so let's start planting up. So we need to start off with our gravel. Gravel, unlike with the Narcissi kits, whereby the gravel's there for sort of a bit of drainage, but nothing. It's not going to affect the bulbs particularly. In this kit, gravel and drainage is key. It is everything to keeping this kit alive and flourishing. So you will find in your kit a decent amount of gravel, more than in any of the other kits. So if you add in your gravel to the bottom of your planter, making sure you use all of it, making sure there's a decent amount in there. Okay, so now we're going to add in the compost. No, we're not. We're going to add the plants in first, sorry. So you'll have your 3 Saxifraga plants. They might be less floral than this because these had these a while. That's gone in. So they have flowered, and you'll see there's quite a few buds in there. So you will get more flowers if they are looked after well. So you're just going to add in your plants. Now don't do as I have done and don't water them, because these are feeling a little bit dry. So I would make sure that your plants are well watered before you add them. I will do it the other way around, and I will give it a good water when I've finished. So adding in your 3 Saxifraga. into, again, as with the Narcissi planter, into a triangle basically. Oh gosh, that one's got, oh, there we go, compost on the little flowers. Okay, so you'll see the sort of alpine-y kind of carpet of green just sitting around the rim of the plant pot, of the planter. Now, don't get me wrong, these are delicate. So if you are, if you break a stem when you're planting, it really doesn't matter. As you will see from your plants when they arrive, they will have little buds and they will then bloom and take the place of the ones that maybe you might need to cut off. For example, I have been a bit rough with this one, so I'm just going to cut. Or maybe that's not snapped. I'm going to leave it because I don't think I have actually snapped that, and let's just see if it comes back. I might just try and anchor it a bit there. Okay, so once you've potted your 3 plants in a sort of triangle shape, you can then add in your compost in the gaps. So again, they are delicate, so just being really careful. You're just going to add in your compost in the sort of 3 gaps between the plants. So the way I'm doing it is I'm using my left hand to sort of push gently the plants back so that I can get the compost in as efficiently as possible, and then they just float back. Let me just do this so that you can see. There we go. Now, as these plants relax into their pot, they will sort of become a little bit sort of looser, just sort of and fill the plant. And of course you will, if it's looked after really well, and you follow my tips, the buds will bloom and you'll get a beautiful large kind of sort of well, alpines are kind of, they do sort of a matting growth where they sort of do this. So hopefully it will trail and it will just be beautiful. So once we've done that, we can now add in the moss. Really, really importantly for this kit, because it isn't, I mean, it's so worth it because it's so gorgeous, but it does take more care. So I always say on my website to make sure you're watering the compost, not just the moss. So making sure that the actual root system is getting the moisture rather than, you're just keeping the moss alive and nice and green. So make sure you water. It's tricky again because it's delicate. Maybe you can just create like a really gentle kind of space and then just add in the water like that. Or you could just take your moss off and then just water the compost there. So I'm just going to add in some bun moss in those sort of 3 triangles where the compost has been filled. Again, just being as gentle as you can, but don't worry, if any snap, you can just cut them off and they will grow again. So that's the bun moss. And I'm just going to add a little bit of sphagnum around the sort of base of the plants. Again, just being as gentle as possible. And then just because you'll have it, you can add in some flat moss if you want to in any of the other gaps. Okay, so now you can add in your twigs. So in your kit you'll have your cherry blossom, your birch twigs, excuse me, and your dried oregano. So I'm going to start with my birch twigs. Again, this is just to add another texture. It's not necessarily for support, so you can add in as much or as little as you want from your bundle that you will receive in your kit. But I'm just going to break it down into sort of little sections, something like that, and then gently adding them in. Now with this, if you want to just place it in, it will stay. You don't need to push down in this kit. You can just leave it in amongst the sort of matting of the Alpine Saxifrage and then just leave it. You don't need to kind of be, you know, sort of trying to push anything into the compost, because it's all dried anyway. It won't benefit from it, and actually we're just trying to keep this very delicate plant sort of as intact as possible when we're planting up. Okay, so that's the birch, and then I'm going to pop in a little bit of the cherry. Probably just going to put maybe 5 little bits in. Again, just gently placing, no need to push it all the way down. And then lastly, the dried oregano. Excuse the sniffling. Okay, again, just probably about 5 little sort of fronds of the dried oregano. Now, just to really talk you through how to look after your Saxifrage kits. So as I've said, they're so alpine plants, so they like lots of sunlight, and they really don't like to be waterlogged. So I would say overwatering is going to shorten the life of this plant rather than sort of underwatering. So I would say water every 3 days, and don't over water. So just water, you know, until the soil feels a bit damp, and then sort of leave it and see how it goes. And then if you feel like, oh, it's looking a bit sad or a bit sorry, you can add a little bit more water, or maybe move it to somewhere a bit sunnier if you can. But yes, just keep them sort of damp but not overwatered, because as I've said, the drainage is so important. So if you find that you've got sort of, you've watered and there's lots and lots of water in your saucer, I would possibly suggest tipping that water out from the saucer and then just letting it get on with it, and it will absorb what water you have watered it from the gravel. But yeah, somewhere sunny, and you will benefit so much from this plant. It's so beautiful. It just works in all interiors, and yeah, is a really beautiful living centerpiece. So I hope you love this Saxifrage planter kit, and we'll now move on to the Parisian Saxifrage kit. So I'm just going to move this to the side. And here we go. So this is one of my favourites. A really, really beautiful pot. Just this gorgeous detailing and the matching saucer. I love it. So I hope you do too. So you will have your Saxifraga plant and your gravel compost and your moss and your bundle of twigs. So let's start potting. So again, without meaning to bore you, drainage is so key in these kits. So add in all of your gravel to your pot, and then you can just go straight in gently with your plant. And if I'd watered it, it would have gone in much more elegantly than that. Okay, I mean, that's just already looking gorgeous. I just love how it just flops over the side. It's just such a gorgeous plant. Okay, so that's in. You don't actually need much compost, so I'm just going to gently add some in the sides, but you won't need very much. But let's just go. Just a delicate amount. And then just gently sort of compress it down a little bit. Okay, so now we can add in our moss. I'm going to start with the bun moss. So with the bun moss, I've sort of broken it into sort of like a long length. And then that simply tucks in there, like that. And that's all you have to do. So you just take your bun moss and you break it into those sort of longer sections, and then just gently place in the pot. I'm going to pop some sphagnum in as well. But yeah, with these kits, they are just a little bit more challenging, but they're so rewarding because they really do look beautiful. Okay, so that's the moss in, and then I'm going to add in the birch. Again, just a little bit, not loads, although of course just add in as much as you want to from your bundle. But again, just kind of pushing it down, but just not sort of forcing it. So don't worry about getting the twigs into the compost, that's not necessary. Okay, and then some cherry blossom twigs. Just going to put 3 in, I think. Excuse me. And then some oregano to finish it off. It smells lovely. Okay, so there we have the Parisian Saxifraga pot kit. So now we're moving on to our 2 Blue Muscari pot kits for March. Last month we focused on White Muscari, just such a beautiful early spring bulb. And this month we thought, as it's Mother's Day, and as we're moving into sort of lovely springtime, we'd add in a touch of colour to our pot kits. You know, if you've been following along for the past sort of year, you'll see that colour doesn't feature heavily in our kits. I'm not one for colour. I like neutrals, and I like plants and flowers that you can sort of style your homes with, and that they won't sort of clash or compete, but just sort of just provide that lovely living kind of styling to your home. So, but this month we're adding in the Blue Muscari, which is of course a colour, but it's so neutral still, so soft. Was actually my favourite when I was training as a florist all those years ago. It still is just a really gorgeous bulb that's one of my favourites. So let's pot these up. We have introduced a zinc planter for this month. Again, I just think it works really well with the blue, and just adds another texture and another dimension and another offering to our kits. So we'll start with that one. So you will have your little sort of zinc planter with these gorgeous little handles. This is 20 centimeters across, so it's a kind of a nice size, but nothing too massive, so works really well with your styling in your homes. And you will receive in your kit, as always, your gravel, your moss, your compost, your twigs, and of course your plants. So let's begin with adding the gravel into the base of your zinc planter. Now you don't need a lot of gravel. It's there for a drainage element, but it's not crucial. The root system doesn't really reach that far down. It's sort of with sort of spring bulbs like Muscari, the root system kind of stays quite close to the bulb rather than sort of really kind of dispersing throughout the compost. So the gravel is there for drainage, but it's just there to sort of assist rather than being crucial. We'll then add in your compost. So in this kit you'll get 2 pots of Blue Muscari to split up and place throughout your planter. You can use the compost that's in the plant pots as well, because there will be some nutritional value there. Okay, so you want to go reasonably high up your planter. And then, now I am a bad florist because I have left these bulbs in my car for the past 2 days. This one is a bit older actually. I was hoping it might have bloomed a bit more so that I can show you the colour. You might be able to see just the beginnings of those soft blue kind of bell-shaped sort of florals on it. This one was in my car and it's moved towards the sun. So it's not perfectly straight, but hopefully I'll straighten it up when I pot it. But yeah, sorry about that. So simply take out the bulbs from the pot. And then you can begin breaking them up. And again, you don't need to worry, you can be reasonably kind of sort of sturdy with them. I know it looks brutal, but the root system does regrow. So you're sort of just separating them like this. It's actually quite a satisfying job. So get them all separate. So the idea of this is that then you can sort of plant them amongst the planter in a less sort of structured way. So if you obviously potted your two plant pots of bulbs sort of like that, it wouldn't look as sort of natural and organic. So much like with the narcissi, you can do a sort of trick where you twist your bulb in the palm of your hand, and it tucks the roots under the bulb beautifully into a little nest, and then you simply place in your planter. Now already I'm thinking that I want more compost in there, so I'm going to just add in a little bit more, just because I want, yeah, there we go, I want it to sit a little bit higher so that you can see the sort of papery bulb above the rim of the zinc planter. Now when you receive yours, they won't be quite so sort of out. They might be a little bit smaller, although these are still quite fresh, so you should get a nice amount of time to watch them grow. Now add that compost in. Once the moss goes in, that provides that kind of structure, so they'll stay a little bit more upright, behave a bit better. Okay, let's move on to the second pot. So as I was saying, this one is a little bit further along. I'm trying to get it to bloom quicker, but they do take a while, which is obviously a good thing. You should find that there are plenty of bulbs for it to look really beautifully full, but then still space to add in your lovely moss, which just gives it that texture. Okay, so we can sort of maneuver once the moss is around them. Bear with me while I just, excuse me. Okay, let's move this out of the way. So, in your kit you will have your 3 types of moss, so that now is the time to add that in. So I break it up into little bits, so that then you're adding the little sections of the bun moss, which is the sort of chunkier moss, amongst the bulbs. And in a minute I will show you that you can lift the bulbs up once the moss is in, so that you see those papery kind of delicate bulbs a bit more, but I'll do that in a minute, show you that. Okay, so that's the bun moss, and now I'm going to add in some flat moss with all its kind of dried leaves and twigs, again just in those gaps. Okay, and then lastly add in some sphagnum moss, which is the sort of more two-tone moss, in any other gaps that you can see. Okay, so now let me show you how you can, hang on, bear with me. Sorry. You can, let me just take this leaf off. Raise the bulb above the moss. So, you've got your moss, if you push it sort of down, and then you sort of sit your bulb on top. So before it was covered, and then you just pull it up just gently, and then you sit it on top of the moss. It makes no difference to the root structure because the root structure is already underneath, next to the compost, which is the crucial thing. It's getting the nutrients from the compost. But it just means, navigate amongst them all, it just means that you get that other kind of element, another texture. I mean, look, it's just by raising that bulb up, it just makes it look so gorgeous. I'm just going to add in a little bit more moss at the front there. Okay, so most of these bulbs now can be seen, one hiding there, seen, there we go, above the compost, above the moss, sorry, which I just think makes all the difference. Okay, so now those bulbs all planted, looking gorgeous, and we can now start adding in our twigs. Okay, so in your kit, bear with me 2 seconds. Oh, bloody cold, hey? Oh, sorry. Okay, so we'll start with the birch. And again, this is just for aesthetics, just to add another dimension to your kit. It's also a really sort of satisfying thing to sort of do, I think. I enjoy adding the twigs in at the end. You can have them as high or as low as you want, or just sort of maybe do them in different heights. You can add them all in or just some. See what takes your fancy when you're potting up. Okay, now I'm going to put some cherry twigs in. I'll probably put about five of them in. So you'll get different lengths in your kit. So some will be shorter and some will be longer. Again, that just adds to that sort of texture, having different sort of heights. It's much more interesting to look at. Okay, and then adding in the dried oregano. Again, with this you can have the sections long or keep them sort of compact and short. So yeah, probably cut them around to that length there. Again, it's completely up to you. Obviously the muscari will get taller. And you can use the twigs to sort of support the muscari as it grows. You can wrap the muscari as it gets higher around the twigs. Okay, so just to go through some care just before I move on to the trio. With Muscari, they do like to be kept well watered. I would be watering probably every 2 days or so, keeping the compost nice and damp, not waterlogged, so don't sort of, water in it with the idea that then the zinc plant is going to fill up with water at the bottom. It's much better to water little and often. Keep it away from direct sun and fresh fruit, and allow it to have sunlight but no direct sort of heat sources, no sort of radiators or anything, and hopefully you will have a planter that will bloom into sort of that spring beautiful kind of sorbet pastel blue, and you'll really enjoy it. Okay, we'll move on to the trio now. So that's the zinc planter, which I'll pop there. Now, so these are new pots again to the collection this month. These are, they're just absolutely adorable. They are the cutest pots. They are tiny. They are sort of an 8.5 centimetre across size. Berg's Potted Italian made pots with this lovely kind of scalloped rim around the top, and a gorgeous teeny matching saucer. They work beautifully with tablescapes. That's what I had in mind when I created this kit. Perfect for sort of a spring lunch, or if you have family over, just really lovely to sort of pop on your table if you're having a Sunday roast. So that's what I had in my mind when I created this little kit. It's definitely a sort of a tablescape sort of esque kit, and that's what it's best in my view to be used for. Don't get me wrong, it would look beautiful on a windowsill as well, but yeah, for tablescaping, this is it. Okay, so let's add in the gravel first. So sit your pots upon their sources first, and then add in your gravel. So just split the gravel that you have in your kit, in the brown paper bags, amongst the 3 pots, and then do the same for your compost. Now we're going to do the same method as we did for the zinc planter for these kits, for the trio, whereby we're going to split the bulbs up. It looks brutal, but it's absolutely fine for them. Okay, so you will have 2 pots, plant pots in your kit. So again, left that one in the car, didn't leave that one in the car. Yeah, sorry about that. But they will straighten up and be absolutely fine. So yes, you will have 2 plant pots. The reason you don't have 3 is probably quite obvious, in that these are so diddy that they won't fit. So you don't need 3. Again, it's with the idea of creating a kit that's relatively inexpensive, in that we're not wasting by adding another pot in, and it means you can split the bulbs up and use it for your tablescapes. Okay, so let's break them up like we did with the zinc planter. I'll just move these little pots to the side. Now I'll show you first with the ones which are probably going to be more like how they will look when you receive them. They're just, how cute. Tiny little bulbs with the softest blue just poking through. Okay, well, that was easy. That broke up nice. Okay, so I think 6, 12, there's enough for 4 little bulbs in each one. So let's start popping them in. So doing the sort of nest technique where you're kind of spiraling it in the palm of your hand so that the little roots sit below. Oh gosh, I just love this kit so much. So popping 4 bulbs in. If you find you get a pot where the bulbs are a bit bigger, because they're not all going to be, I'm going to pop him in. Look at him. Oh, so cute. Let's stick him there. hopefully he'll grow. Okay. Yeah, if you find that your bulbs are a bit bigger in terms of the actual bulb, you might fit 3 in and be happy with 3 and use the extra ones that you have in something else. You could put them in and obviously another pot, or you know, you could even put them in like your favourite mug or something, I don't know. But just see how you feel. If you want 3, you can have 3. If you want 4, you can do 4. Both works. Okay, so that's, bear with, sorry. That is the first pot, and then let's put these 2 in before we break down the next plant pot of Muscari. So wrapping the roots into a little nest, popping it. Okay. Okay, you can see this one's root structure is a little bit more developed. It's a slightly older plant. If you have ordered a Blue Muscari refill kit, which we launched this month, so we've created them with the idea that you may have ordered kits in the previous months and just want something to fill them with. You know, maybe you've potted the plant that was in there on, or it's become too big for the pot, or maybe it's bulbs and they've gone over and you've put them in the garden and you want something else to pop in it. So that's why we've introduced the refill kit. So excited to launch them. I know some of you have been asking for them for so long. It's taken us a while, but we've got there in the end. So they are available. So if you have ordered the Blue Muscari Trio refill kit, you will get 3 pots of Blue Muscari. Now, the reason you'll get 3 pots rather than 2 pots like you have in this trio is because this is the first time we've done an 8.5 centimetre pot trio. You don't need 3 pots for it, but also I know a lot of you ordered the 12 centimetre Simona trio, so that is like the 14 centimetre Saxifraga, Parisian Saxifraga. It's the smaller version of that. So these Muscari will work beautifully in that as a trio. And then I know lots of you also ordered the 10 centimetre tall castle pots. But yeah, have a look at the bottom of your pots, of your Berg's Potter pots, and it will tell you the size of your pot, and therefore you can work out which refill you need. Okay, so those are all planted up and looking gorgeous, and now we can add in the moss. Now, as you can see, there's not much space for moss, but we're going to put some in anyway, and you simply just need to break it up into teeny tiny bits and just gently squash it down. Some in the middle. Oh, it just looks so lovely. Personally, I don't mind it when the roots are sort of sticking out a little bit. It adds to the sort of texture of it, so leave them out if you want to. Obviously not all of them, but just if you get the odd white root poking out. Okay. So just going through some care as well for this, like with the zinc planter, just keep it nice and damp. So you're looking at sort of every 2 to 3 days watering. Just keep an eye on it. It's because it's a smaller pot, doesn't have the capacity to hold much water, so you might find you need to water it sort of a tiny bit, you know, even daily. But that's part of the beauty of these kits, and just enjoying looking after, you know, something living in your homes. So yeah, you might find every day little and often, or sort of every 2 days might be fine, but just see how you go. And it just depends on the weather, you know, whether you've got your central heating on, and that kind of thing. But yeah, just a little bit of space for some nice textured moss. Okay. So I'm just going to now pop in the twigs. So I'm going to have to go into my bundle, which is what you will receive in your kits. Okay. So we'll start with the dried birch. So just break it down into sort of little sections. I'm probably just going to put 2 or 3 of each. So probably 3 birch in each one. Okay, and now the cherry. So if you get longer bits of cherry, you can break it down. I would cut it, excuse me, just where there's a little bud. So I'm just going to put in 3 sections of cherry there in each one. Sorry, excuse me. Okay, now adding in the dried oregano just to finish it off. Again, I'll probably just put sort of 3 little prongs of the dried oregano in each one, so it's not overpowering the muscari, but it's just adding something extra. Okay, and there we have it. So that is the Blue Muscari Trio kit. So I'm now going to add in the tutorial for the resin dipped white Muscari pot kit that we did last month, we bought back this month. You know, I know how much you all love your white Muscari, so I thought, oh, well, I'll add one in, you know, for those that want to mix it up and, you know, maybe order a couple of different bits for tablescaping. So I've added that in as well. So that will come at the end. And then, yeah, just let me know how you go. Send me any questions that you have about your kits. Send me photographs. I love seeing how they're all potted up. And yeah, I hope you really, really enjoy your March pot kits. So this is our final kit for February. So this is the resin dipped Muscari kit. This was actually our first pot kit 10, 11 months ago. We did some white Muscari pots for Lydia, and we did a tutorial on her YouTube, and they just sold out so well. Yeah, I think we restocked them 3 times and they sold out each time. So this month we are bringing them back. I do love the Bergs Potter terracotta pots. I love the detail of them, but I also really love these. These are probably, you know, obviously they've got all the aged sort of detailing on them, the resin, sort of a little bit of concrete thrown in there. They all are different to each other, so no 2 pots are the same. And yeah, they just work really, really beautifully with the spring bulbs. So with this kit, there's no drainage hole in the pot, so you do need to use all of your gravel. We'll probably put a little bit more in for these kits for this kit than we will for the ones with the drainage holes. But yeah, so starting off, adding in your gravel. So that just acts as drainage, so that when you water, the roots aren't going to sit in like a big pool of water. So it's harder to overwater them. Okay, so now we're going to go in with our compost. So again, using all of the compost in your kit with the idea that you're going to sort of bring the compost up to a level that means that you will be able to see the bulbs sort of around the rim of the pot, so they're not sort of put deep into the pot, they're sort of sat just around here so that you can really see that those lovely sort of papery bulbs. Okay. So you'll get 1 plastic pot of white Muscari in your kit. So you take your plant out, oh, it's a loose one, and then you can start to gently tease apart your bulbs, keeping their root structure intact, like this. And then just position them with their roots sort of tucked underneath them. You can sort of screw them in almost, so that the roots sort of sit underneath, so that the roots are going to get access to that compost underneath, to the nutrients in the compost. So you can have them spread out if you want to, or you can cluster them in little groups together if you feel that looks nicer. That is personally the way that I like to do them. I like to have them sort of clustered together. So for example, for these 3, I probably will just keep them together and plant them straight in, like that. And then you can have just sort of a little jiggle around as to where you want your bulbs to sit in your pot. But I personally do prefer it when they're not perfectly uniform and they are sort of a bit more kind of clustered. The other good thing about having them clustered is that then you get to kind of show off that moss as well. And that's when you can go in with your beautiful bun moss, this one here, because you've got a nice sort of gap of compost that it can then just sit on. I'm just going to take some of the root system off the bottom just to give it a bit of a flatter sort of appearance, so it's easier to sort of sit on top of the compost. You can then slightly lift up your bulb if you want to and tuck the moss underneath it, so then you're getting a really good view of the bulb. So again, just taking that sort of root structure off the bottom side of the bun moss, so of this side, just to make it slightly less dense. It then just sits a little bit better on top. And now I'm going to add in some flat moss. Again, as you'll see, just by clustering them together, it adds more space for the moss to sort of take quite a focal point. So it's not just touches of moss, you're actually getting a really substantial area so you can see all the different types of mosses in your kits. So now I'm going to add in the sphagnum moss. That's going to sit sort of in the middle in this sort of cluster of bulbs here. Being really gentle, not to knock the tiny offshoot muscari, like for example this one here. Okay, so all the moss is in, and now can go in with our twigs. So in each kit you'll have the dry thyme twigs and the birch twigs. So I'm starting with the dry thyme, and I'm just going to place that in amongst the bulbs. Again, if you want to lay it flat, you can. But it's brittle, so it's easy just to snap little bits off. I love the comparison between the sort of the twigs and the moss, and then the spring bulb sort of just poking through. Yeah, if you want to just lay it flat, you can, so it just gives that sort of almost sort of carpet woodland feel. Okay, so that's the dried thyme. Now I can add in our birch twigs. Just cut them down and then simply position them in. So the birch twigs are there mainly to add some support to the muscari when it grows, and because they are a really kind of relaxed sort of, you know, delicate bulb flower. They don't have strong structured stems, which I love about them, but it does mean that they're kind of floppy, so you need a little bit of structure to sort of try and keep them upright. But they will just crisscross over each other, they'll do their own thing, but that is the beauty in them, I think. So as with the other kits, watering every sort of 2 days to keep that soil really nice and damp, not waterlogged, away from fresh fruit and radiators, direct heat sources, as cool as possible, but don't worry too much about it. You know, if they're warm, it just means that they'll bloom quicker, but you know, it's not a massive deal. And then yeah, keeping them nice and damp, and once they do go over, once they do go sort of dried and sort of almost, they go a little like a, almost like a browny colour that still looks actually, in my opinion, quite nice. You can then cut the stems down to where the sort of the top of the bulb, and then you can plant them in your garden and they should come back next spring. So there you have it, that's the last of our February pot kits, the resin dipped white muscari plant pot kit. And yeah, just bringing back an old favourite, and yeah, I hope you love it as much as I do.